Good morning, respected members, our panelists and viewers. I'm Trupti from Team CREDAI-MCHI with my co-host Charmi. Thank you for joining us today on a very special webinar. This is the 13th episode of CREDAI-MCHI webinar, Key to Lockdown, powered by 𝗙𝗏𝗏 and 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏 Paints. The key to lockdown is staying connected. I also take this opportunity to thank and express our gratitude towards everyone working at the front line and helping us stay safe. That is our doctors, police forces, Swachhata workers, people providing us with continuous supply of food and milk, our volunteers, government offices, and everyone risking their lives for us. Now I request Mr. 𝗙𝗏𝗏 to take over the screen.
Thank you, Trupti. Good morning to everyone. Can you all hear me?
Very well.
Thank you so much. We have more than 2,500 registrations and I think more than 1,000 people coming on. As we go along, we'll have almost 2,000 of us on this webinar. Before I start the proceedings of the day, I'd like to introduce to all of you, the partners for our webinars today. We've been having, this is the 13th webinar. We've had various people from government, from the finance industry, from the developer community, from the government, the politicians also coming onto the webinar. Today we are partnering with 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Paints. Thank you 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 for partnering with us. The proceeds that will come from the sponsorship will be used by MCHI towards the donations that we are giving for COVID-19. Thank you, Mr. 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and the entire 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Paint team. Now I'll start with the proceedings for the retail webinar. Good morning again to everyone. You will agree that malls and shopping evoke a very, very special feeling in everyone's mind. From shopping at our favorite stores to seeing our blockbuster movies and to dining out with our loved ones, malls have always had a special place in our memories and hearts. From my old days in Hirapanna, where I used to go shopping for foreign goods during my college days, to the grand opening of the Crossroad Mall. Little did we know that that was not hardly a mall format. The big line for opening that day, I remember. To the first Forum Mall, I think on Bannerghatta Road in Bangalore, and then to the fantastic transformation of Phoenix Mills. I used to be in Standard Chartered Bank back then, and I have seen Atul and the Mangurkar architects and all of those finishing that mall. One India Place, the Amirbhai 1 kilometer flow plate in NCR. Retail has come about a long, long, long way. Iconic brands like Big Bazaar, Pantaloons, Shoppers Stop, D-Mart, PVR, Westside have been built over the last 15 years. These are the Indian brands I'm talking about. Retail has generated employment opportunities for Indian youth across the board, be it at the shop floor level, be it at the back office level, be it at the logistics end of the business. From those heady days of retail where malls were buzzing, multiplexes were abuzz with the blockbuster movies, it's an absolute, what can I say, a nightmare to imagine how those beautifully done up malls must be looking without those the fulcrum of those malls, the customers. This pandemic has thrown a challenge which has been never imagined by a mall owner or a retailer alike. This will need a very, very close collaboration between all the stakeholders in the retail ecosystem to bring back the glorious days of retail industry, as it plays a key role in the GDP growth and the employment opportunities in the country, especially at the youth. Resilience and far-sightedness is the order of the day, is what I feel. And who better than our panelists today to tell us how they foresee the coming months and the bounce back of the retail industry. We have with us, and I take the liberty of calling them the co-founders of retail in India. They are the India's foremost and the most respected and successful names in retail business since its early days. We have with us Mr. B.S. Nagesh, founder TRRAIN and chairman Shoppers Stop. Welcome, sir. Good morning to you. Thank you. Mr. Atul Ruia, managing director of Phoenix Mills. Doesn't need any further introduction. Good morning, sir. Welcome to you too. And Mr. Ajay Bijli, MD PVR, the inventor of the multiplex complex. And to juggle a fantastic and intriguing conversation, who better than Anuj Puri, chairman ANAROCK. But few may remember him from those Chesterton Meghra's days. Congress will remember him from those days. where he facilitated the biggest deals in retail industry. I remember that entire parking lot where the hotel is today used to be a parking lot in Phoenix Mills. He facilitated the biggest deals across the country, and he's going to be helping us churn a very, very meaningful conversation with the panelists. Over to you, Anuj. Thank you.
Anuj Puri is truly the father of Indian
Not at all.
Anuj, just before you start, just wanted to tell all four of you all are not just speaking and imparting knowledge today, you all are also raising funds for COVID-19, and all webinars from now on will also be raising money for this noble cause, and whatever all of us can do, we will keep doing. So just to share this with all of you all are not just enlightening people, you all are also raising funds for COVID-19. Anuj, over.
That's a very nice, Dharmesh.
1 minute, Anuj, before that, I'm so sorry. Dharmesh, can you just inform the eminent panelists and our people that, what work CREDAI-MCHI has done for...
It'll be worthwhile.
Spend a minute.
Or at the end of the webinar, you can once again brief panel. Yeah. Anuj,
thank you very much. Thanks, Preetham, for that very kind, flowing introduction and setting up the context so beautifully. I also must thank Dharmesh to have put together this panel, because I can tell you is that I haven't really seen Atul come on a panel. So, Dharmesh has done a fantastic job to bring in Ajay, Atul, Nagesh. My favorite three panelists on the retail. And retail, Preetham, as you rightly said, is my mind may be somewhere else, but my heart still is in retail. And I really enjoy. So I'm really looking forward to the next 60 or 75 minutes of debate. So thanks to MCHI CREDAI for putting this entire panel and seminar together. Nagesh, if I can come to you first. In 2008 and 9, global financial crisis happened. We had a similar issue in retail, where I remember, Atul, at that time, we're leasing the Palladium at that stage, and we got a little bit stuck at that stage. Do you think this one is very different to what we had witnessed in 2009?
Yes, Anuj, and thank you, CREDAI, for inviting me here. I think the big difference between then and now is that time it was only a financial crisis and the businesses were continuing. Whereas this time it's a financial crisis, health crisis, and the businesses are not continuing. That time, the brands which were existing, Shoppers that time was existing for many, many years. And I remember PVR. All of us actually survived because of a relationship with our customers and what we had done for the customers over our earlier period. I think to me that came in very, very handy. The loyalty programs came in very, very handy. And everybody was only struggling to say, when the customer comes in, can you get more customers? And the customers who are coming in, can we get more out of their pocket? I think today it is very, very different. Today it is not only different from the fact that we have to get more customers and get more from the pocket. The question is, we'll have to change our environment to actually suit. And we are talking of us being in the physical business. And physical business to change the environment, change the layout, okay, with an uncertainty of as to how many customers will come and who will come, is a totally, totally new challenge. That's from the business point of view. From the consumer point of view, I'm looking at a very, very different change coming in the youngsters of between up to 25. I'm seeing 25 to 45 very different, and the 45 to 65 another different. So you're having three sets of consumers. So suddenly we will have to redefine our TG, and we have to also redefine as to how the TG is going to behave. And all this is basically guesswork. I don't know any one of us are an expert, or we can put our hands and say this is what will happen. We're all guesstimating out of past experience, but this is a totally, totally new experience.
Got it. I understand that, and thanks for that comment. Atul, two questions that Nagesh really touched on. One is the customer. Last time at least there was a customer. How do we bring the confidence of the customer back? That's one. And the second is, as a mall owner, Atul, we've seen the malls shut down for the first time, and they shut down even before the lockdown happened. And perhaps after the lockdown is lifted, they'll be amongst the last assets to open up. And even when they open up, we're going to talk further that how is that going to happen. So two questions. One is, how do you bring back the confidence of the customer? And the second is, would you say is that this asset class is amongst the worst hit, perhaps more than many of the other asset classes in real estate?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on this chat and CHI. So I think this, for us at least, this is a little bit of history repeating itself, because we were in 2008 building 5 very large malls, and at current we are building 7 very large malls, and so obviously it's a little bit scary. I'm building a mall called Mall of Asia, which is a 2 million square foot, 2.5 million square foot mall in Bangalore. So I mean, it's scary to even conceive how the future will look. So to take the questions that Anuj asked specifically, but I want to speak a little more generally. My individual view on this is the first. We look back at the Great Depression, 1930. Franklin D. Roosevelt said a very important line: "The only thing to fear is fear itself." And I think we've entered into that fear zone, where we are so scared that we've lost all rational thinking. For me as an individual, I believe, and I'm an eternal optimist, I believe that come July, everything will be back to normal. I believe the customer will come naturally and normally. And I believe we will suddenly find the growth engine moving in the way it used to. That said, what are the steps we intend to take when malls reopen? We intend to, basically, we have decided that we will have restricted hours, 12:30 to 8:30 p.m. So 8-hour shift off peak, so that the staff can enter the mall off peak. We will have temperature check. So we have to create the awareness of hygiene, safety, first and foremost. So face mask mandatory, sanitization of hand mandatory, sanitization of whole mall constantly, social distancing. So 50% operative F&B outlets, 50% operative cinemas, alternate seats. So the typical, you'll have, so with all the basic and bare minimum safe, I mean the top highest standard and the bare minimum customer entry into the mall, to give the comfort and confidence to the customer. I think that's the number one point. And the number 2 point, we are going to have a massive PR machinery. So I'm actually going to split the team into 2 teams. One team which purely looks after the ops, and the other team which the safety ops and those kind of things, and the other team which looks at how to create the right environment, because you can't have events and other things. So you have to create a right conducive environment to get the shopper back. Long answer, but that's my... Did I miss one of the questions?
No, not at all. Not at all. You actually combined both of them together, and rightfully you said is that once we bring in the spirit, the customer will start to come in.
I'd like to say one more thing, Anuj. In 2009, I remember sitting with my leasing team, thinking, how are we going to lease 1,200 shops after 2008, when everyone was devastated? And all we had to do was, I started to come to office at 7 in the morning and do a 2-hour leasing review every day of 2009 with the team. And everything went, 7 to 9 was my leasing review, and then 9 onwards, the team did their work. Everything went back to normal. And at that time, we thought this is the end. So I'm very confident it's going to play out in just the same way.
That is very encouraging. Absolutely phenomenal. Atul, brings out a huge amount of positivity in all of us and all the viewers who are on the screen. Ajay, coming to you, 2 questions that I have is, multiplexes obviously, given the density, were amongst the first ones to close. Even before the malls closed, they closed the multiplexes. And I don't know how they're going to really be able to open the multiplexes. Atul alluded, maybe it's an alternate seat that you'll have to, leave. So 2 questions really, Ajay. One is, internationally, are you getting any paddle from China or somewhere else where they may have opened, and how they are really performing? And second is, do you fear that the content may not be there now because it's being locked down for a while. And even once we were to open it up, it may take a little bit time to energize the entire multiplex. Ajay, you are on mute.
Okay,
Thank
now?
you. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Phenomenal. Absolutely.
Well, first of all, thanks. Dharmesh pulled it off, and thanks for having me on this panel. Good morning, Atul, Nagesh, everyone. First of all, it is unprecedented. Anuj, you can't, nobody, even world leaders, we are just mere mortal businessmen. Even world leaders couldn't anticipate and, think that something like this would happen. So everybody has been caught off guard. We were also completely caught off guard. We knew this was going to happen in China, but you know how human nature is. Sometimes you felt that this is not going to happen for whatever reason. There was no rationale behind it. But we were the first ones to have closed down. And I think we will be the last ones to be open because we are confined spaces at the end of the day. And from that point of view, if we have to contribute towards social distancing and making sure the disease doesn't spread, it's fine. However, it's taken a very massive toll. And it's not about profitability management at all. It's all about liquidity management now because revenues have become completely zero. We are benchmarking with a lot of territories, a lot of countries. There is something called Global Cinema Federation. But the news is not very good. Everywhere the cinemas are shut. Very small markets like Taiwan and all, which are very insignificant and also are not dependent on Hollywood so much. Most of the markets are dependent on Hollywood. India is not dependent that much on Hollywood. So most of the markets are shut. China opened up 500 screens and then they had to close it down immediately. Nothing to do with the pandemic and the outbreak. It was mainly because people are watching so much content at home, old content on OTT platforms and everything. They need a massive reason to go out. So the pent-up demand of people to going out, the human capacity to socialize and not remain incarcerated, I'm completely with Atul. I'm a big believer of. I mean, we represent 1/6 of the world population, luckily. And at least the Indian population, I'm very, very sure, cannot be cooped up in their homes for too long. But the reason to go out has to be new movies. And you touched upon that point. And new movies are very, very critical. So there are 3-4 things. I'm sorry, I'm going to take a little longer.
No, absolutely.
If you don't mind. I believe there are 4 things which are going to be important. One is the consumer himself, and his fears have to be allayed. There's a confidence deficit and a discretionary spend deficit. So both things are deficit just now. We'll have to bring the confidence level up. And what Atul is doing, it has to be a huge collaborative approach between the malls and the multiplexes of making sure that people I also believe on the other side of the mouth, I'm going to say that I also believe in Indians being very resilient. They're going to get out. Okay,
very true.
Out demand. At the same time, there are going to be skeptics. So we have to make sure hygiene levels, cleanliness levels, masks, all that social distancing guidelines have been set by America everywhere. 1 seat is left, or if there's a cluster of family of 4 coming, then flaps will come out and then 2 seats will be left. So lots of permutation combinations are there on the seating arrangements that are going to be there. So one is the consumer has to be put to rest. Second is the film industry. So we are, one leg of my business is in the film industry. So we're talking to the Producers Guild, everybody, encouraging them. Like Christopher Nolan recently has announced his biggest movie called Tenet. And he's saying regardless of social distancing norms, strict guidelines where capacities of cinemas and malls is going to be reduced, I'm still going to go ahead and have a very big opening of Tenet, which is one of the biggest movies. Disney's following suit, Universal is following suit. So here we've got these movies like 𝗙𝗎𝗪 83. Movies have to come. I believe the number one thing is going to be brand new movies. Nobody is going to go. It's like nobody's going to go to restaurants to eat stale food. Nobody's going to come and watch old movies. Okay. So that's second, thing we need. I also spoke about discretionary spend deficit. Therefore, we'll need to do something about the ticket prices, definitely, for which we are talking to the government. So that's the fourth or the third element that we need is the government support. Extremely important. Again, benchmarked, Anuj, with everybody. I'm absolutely fascinated by the kind of support UK has given. I had a chat with View Cinema, Tim Richards, yesterday. He's in 9 territories. Can you believe it? The entire 9,000 or 10,000 people who are working there, all 80% of the remuneration is getting subsidized by 9 different European governments. So furloughs are being given.
Furloughs, yes.
And it's incredible. So he's very happy. He said, my people are there. Doesn't matter what occupancies I'll open to, but at least my 9,000 people will be there. GST deferment, VAT has been deferred over there. Singapore has come and understood there's a partnership between mall operators and retailers. We are one. The fight is not amongst us. The fight is against a virus. Fight is not among, everybody has to be together. And they have also come up with situations where the retail industry doesn't, or the real estate industry doesn't get affected, and the tenants don't get affected. And therefore, they've come out with some solutions like that. So I think these four things, just to summarize: consumer confidence, film industry, mall and retailer, massive collaboration to work out something. Everybody had to understand each other's pain points, and government. If these four things happen, human beings getting out, not a problem at all. I think Indians are absolutely fearless. They're going to come out. The kids are going to come out.
Beautifully said, Ajay. Both Atul and you. That we are resilient, there is positivity, and it is very true is that, we're really bundled in our homes and we're itching to go out now. And we're social animals. By nature, we're social animals in there is. Nagesh, I'm just going to change the gears a little bit. Two questions. The pain last time, Atul said this is as well, in 2009, it was largely borne by two communities, which was retailers and mall developers, and we moved on. It does appear, and I just said this as well, that the pain may not be, possible to just bear with these two stakeholders. There may have to be other stakeholders, i.e. the government, to come in. What do you think can be done with third as a stakeholder? I just said there's a few things in there, because I also agree that, the pain is perhaps a lot larger than saying, let's just agree between the two of us how we're going to do the rent. I think this is much beyond that. Second question is, Nagesh, a little tricky, maybe a little sensitive question as well. Is that, is the retailer's balance sheet so fragile that, they were not able to bear, this pain? Or is it that the pain is so deep that they really need the support coming through?
So, Anuj, let me start with your first question, where you said real estate retail, and the third leg is government. But I think the third leg, or the first leg of this, is the consumer. Yeah, and the fourth leg probably is the government. Okay, it's important for us to understand that until unless we give two tools to the consumer, rest of us can keep talking, nothing is going to happen. First is they have to have the mood. Okay, they have to feel good about it. Even if you feel good about it, your wife should allow you to go out, which is not easy. It's very easy for us to talk on this forum, but the realities are very, very different. And if you happen to be more than 60, then you are also going to be called senior citizen, and there'll be another challenge for you. Okay, so that's the first. The second is the money is in the hand. Yeah, this whole COVID has actually taught us two lessons. One lesson is that we don't require as much we thought we required. Okay, that's the first thing that we have learned. And second is, this is also making us as a humanity very inclusive, which means we are now also going to be concerned with the community and the society at large that we have next to each other. Yeah. So we require the kind of boost to the morale, and we require money in the hands of the consumers. Yeah. Once I think this happens and the consumption side builds up, automatically the supply side will work very, very hard on this. And there I think the need for government to come forward is very important. If you look at yesterday's results of all the 30 countries, and if you look at the 30 countries talking about the kind of dose they have given across, okay, I think we stand the lowest as 0.8% of GDP. Yeah. We are hearing from a prime minister. I think the country and the prime minister and the government has done a fantastic job in terms of containment. Yeah. But I think this is also the time when there has to be some announcement to say, because don't forget, there's a lot of fear and anxiety. And the fear and anxiety is not only in the minds of the consumers and the Indian citizens, but also businessmen, small, medium, and large. So that also has to come out. Otherwise, you can say, I'm very positive and everything. But the reality is, ki boss, thoda problem hai, or jada problem hai. So in that situation, I think the supply chain has to be looked at, and each of the supply chain we'll have to fund. So if you ask me, there are basically two large problems, okay, and the government has to address it. There are no options. One is, as a country, we can't afford unemployment and job losses. We're very, very clear, especially the ones who are earning less than 50,000 or less than 100,000 rupees a month. Okay, that's very, very important. The second is the liquidity part of it. I mean, without liquidity, it will not happen. And also, let's not see, when we say India is a developing country, what does it mean? Which means that all of us are positive, all of us want growth. And when you want growth, what do? You take all your equity and put it into the future. You take all your debt and put it into the future, and everything is future. I mean, which other part of the world would you have another Atul Ruia who's got 7 malls happening, whereas around the world you're closing? Ask Ajay as to number of properties. Shoppers open 12 stores, another 24 in the pipeline in the next 2 years' time. So the opportunity is the growth, and the problem is that all capital required has gone into growth. Okay, so government has to bring in liquidity, and you can't keep decreasing repo rate and the bank money has got in the hands of the big guys. Because the money has to go into the hands of the small guys because they are our consumers. The top 100,000 people. Yeah. So I think that is the reality. In this reality, if you look at the retail ecosystem, I must say it is very vulnerable. Okay, it is very vulnerable. You look at the biggest 5 or 6. Okay, if you have to look at their own balance sheet, just the retail balance sheet without getting onto the parents, because the balance sheets are not strong. I mean, they're all going to take support from the parental groups. Come to the next 100 or next 200, okay, which don't have parental groups. Okay, their balance sheet is also weak. Very few, maybe 10-20% will have cash in the balance sheet. If they don't have cash in the balance sheet, their ability to borrow, okay, may be there, but I would say average. But let's look at the possibility of the banks to give. I mean, they're not. It's not that after the diktat, the banks have said, oh, dear, my customers, please come. Like retailer says, dear customer, you're welcome. Please tell me how many banks have come and said, dear customer, you're welcome. Okay, whether you have the credit rating or not, we're here to give you money. Okay, I don't think that's happened. Okay, so there is a challenge. But the biggest challenge, Anuj, is the supply chain. See, all of us are saying, can retailer pay? But don't forget, retail is all about product and services. Okay, services can still happen because the humans will deliver. But the product supply chain has got extremely damaged in the last 1 month's time, and another 1 month is going to get affected. So, okay, whether you're talking of, I mean, if Ajay is talking of the film, there are people who do equipments. Okay, if you're talking of garments, there are people who do embroidery. If you're talking of jewelry, there's a small artisan who's making the small kada, which becomes a bigger kada and goes into it. That supply chain has got damaged. And in that supply chain, it is not the spirits which have gone. I mean, I believe Indian businessmen have tremendous spirits. Okay, if they have the money, they'll come back. They have lost the people. For them to get back those people is again going to be a challenge. So to me, my thinking is, even if everything comes on, okay, in a very strong way in the next 2 to 3 months, as Ajay and Atul are saying, and I want to be as optimistic as them, okay, you will find that in the 5 to 6 months period, there is going to be a shortage of products because the last 2 months is going to disrupt the whole supply chain. So there is vulnerability. So again and again, I've been saying, government, we have to retain jobs, but one single thing we require is liquidity, liquidity, liquidity. Businessmen of India are strong. We are not begging. Okay, we want you to support us. We are not saying give us dole. Give us money, we'll return it back. Maybe not in 3 years, but 5 years' time.
Very good point. Very good point. And you know, Atul, just 2 things that Nagesh really brought on the liquidity. I also agree with Nagesh is that this is not wealth destruction. This is just a productivity loss. So if you have the liquidity, you'll be able to go through it in this entire period. 2 questions, Atul. One a little sensitive than the other. The malls who are not going to be able to bear the pressure on liquidity, do you think they're going to go into consolidation? Some of the tier 2 malls, tier sort of B or C grade malls, many of the retailers will start to put pressure onto those, and evidence is coming to us as well that those are the malls that are really at this moment in time starting to crack, and they've also taken debt. And that's where the retailers are first going in and saying is maybe we don't want to continue because we were perhaps not even making money in those malls. So is there, like Nagesh said, is on the retailer side, is there that on the mall side also there is going to be consolidation in that is? And the second is, Atul, inevitably at some stage there will be a dialogue that will start to close between the retailer or the occupier and the mall owner on what are you going to do with the rent, not only during the lockdown period, but even perhaps later. My question to you, Atul, is that many of the malls have taken lease rental discounting.
from the banks. How does that really work if your rental is not coming in? How do you support the payments to the bank?
Yeah, so I think Ajay and Nagesh both really touched on this issue. This next 4 to 6 months is only about liquidity management. Even we are not bothered about profit and loss, obviously. So if we look at our own balance sheet, we have nil income, NIL, zero. And of course, your expenses are pretty much as a shopping mall, your expenses are hardly, the only thing you're saving is utility, which is a very negligible part of your overall cost. So, really speaking, I believe there's almost no mall that's not in a lease rent discounting kind of scenario. So all malls will become virtual defaulters in a matter of time, unless, as Nagesh rightly said, the parent balance sheet supports the mall. So the first question, whether I hope in the interest of the current mall owners that they are not in a position where they are forced to sell in distress. This is the best time to do nothing. This is the time to relax and let it play out. If you can manage to convince your bankers to let you roll over, if the government intervenes and at least allows the malls not as they have for 3 months, I think that needs to be extended into 12 months for the malls to not go into a default situation. It won't end there. The government will have to give some short-term working capital for payment of salaries and for payment of other property tax and all the other various dues that you normally have in business, without which it's obvious people will stop paying salaries in a few. So we have just focused on how we can pay salaries up to December in the event nothing happens till December. So our core focus is to pay our team salaries. So there will be consolidation, there will be distress, but I hope, and in the interest of all of our real estate developers who put in so much heart and soul into building their malls, that they are not forced to sell in this time of on the second question, can you just remind me what the second question was in brief?
Second one was on the LRD, which you have covered up very well.
So on the LRD, I think that is already covered. But I think your second question was on this retailer, the sensitive question on the retailer relationship with the developer and the LRD. So I think I'm always inclined, frankly, I have never read my legal agreement, nor is it in my intention to read the legal agreement. That said, of course, all malls will claim that their contracts don't cause rents are still payable, etc. However, what is going to play out of all this is a basic fundamental concept of reasonableness. We have to be reasonable with each other. Mall has to be reasonable with the tenant, tenant has to be reasonable with the mall, government and bank has to be reasonable with the mall. If we all follow a concept of reasonableness, I feel we'll be absolutely fine. Each entity will decide what is reasonable in their paradigm in which they are operating. If the banks give me an interest moratorium, I have no reason to ask for a rent. Very frankly, simple answer. So once we get to some reasonableness in this whole thing, things will settle. We are not raising invoices for the month of April as an organization, but we are saying that we will discuss this and take a collective call closer to the opening time, or at least we'll give you moratorium at the very least, because we have got a moratorium. So that's our kind of position on the sensitive topic.
Very nice, beautiful. I mean, I love that word reasonableness. And I'm going to Ajay come to you because if on the scale of 0 to 100, I mean the pain on the multiplex operators is really 100, and it's not only multiplex operators; it's also F&B, It's also the food courts, the restaurants, and you earlier said is that maybe we'll have to have some social distancing, and that creates I don't know how does that the business profitability goes in that. Is on the reasonableness, Ajay, I just want to understand, how do you define that reasonableness with a mall owner? What is that reasonableness?
I think, first of all, the moment the lockdown opens, I'm going to get a tattoo put with reasonableness written on my right and left. It's a great word. And I think it's a fabulous approach. There's no other choice. I mean, that's what one needs to do. As I said, the fight is not amongst each other. We are collaborative. We are joined at the hip.
Yes,
we've invested a lot of money. It's always been a partnership. And if there is a pain point that is there with the developer, it needs to be understood. We need to find a solution together. If there's a pain point on our side that our revenues also became completely zero suddenly, and it's going to take a lot of time because we are a very, very confined space, and social distancing is going to be very difficult no matter what we do. And as you said, the mindset of the consumer is going to be negative still. So it's going to be a slow burn. I did, in my first answer, I did show optimism, and I continue to show optimism. But there are caveats to that. I mean, there is a atrophy of the business that is going to happen. It's going to be a slow burn, and it's going to take some time before everything gets resuscitated. And that is a time we'll have to find a solution. So I was with Vikram Kirloskar on another panel 2 days ago, and he divided the issue into two parts. One was when the medicine comes. That means if you go to the hospital, at least there's a medicine that cures you. You're not going to die. So that's one part which is going to bring some level of confidence.
Very true.
And the second one is when the vaccine comes, which is going to take longer. So he felt that that actually that's how businesses have to look at their outlooks. When we open up, number one, medicine comes, and second phase is when the vaccine comes. Of course, that's very simplistically put. Of course, the other things that Nagesh spoke about, supply chains coming, in my case, movies coming back, also the consumer confidence coming up, wives letting you go, mothers letting you go, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of boxes that need to get ticked. But the reason why Atul and I are optimistic, because I believe those boxes will get ticked eventually. It will not happen overnight. It's going to take time. We are not in the technology space or pharma space or various other, on Amazon type space, which is clearly benefiting. We are in a very, very consumer interfacing business. It's going to take time, but it's going to happen. And that's the time we need to be collaborative, and we need to be reasonable. Brilliant approach that Atul has taken. I hope everybody, 180 odd developers that we've got across the country, they also take that approach. Life will be simpler. Otherwise, I'll also have a beard maybe much longer than Dharmesh.
But it is fantastic. I'm so encouraged.
Yeah, I'm going to be asking a few questions, so be aware.
Really, really encouraged. Nagesh, on one of the panel discussions, we were having between the mall owners and developers, and it was not as mature as what we are having with Atul and Ajay. And both of them are largely very positive, and I've known both these gentlemen for over 2 decades personally. And whilst the mall owner felt is that I had a Kohinoor as my mall, and the retailer said is, I agree, it's a Kohinoor, but until the lights in my store don't switch on, your Kohinoor doesn't shine. So it is it is a collaborative effort. Two questions, Nagesh. You're the founder of TRRAIN, which runs a beautiful organization with so many retailers, so many informal and formal members who have joined. What we are discovering is that many of the middle-aged guys, like me, are getting used to on this e-commerce, thingy. That do you think that going forward, we may just become very used to doing this one and perhaps not go as much out shopping as we were doing?
Yes, Anuj. What is likely to happen is, as of today, India is about 2% on so-called e-commerce online. And maybe the other part of we are going to catapult into a larger percentage very fast. It is not just about we becoming like the Amazon or the Flipkarts or the shoppers and the big bazaars and the Reliance starts doing online business. I believe technology is suddenly going to make millions of small retailers come online very quickly. If you look at a ShopX, if you look at Udaan and many other tech companies who have been founded by very deep-pocketed people, they can activate a small kirana or a small apparel store into an online e-commerce company within 24 hours to 48 hours. Now, till now, there was a lot of resistance because these mom and pop stores, the smaller stores, thought that they don't require it because they're able to serve. Today, they're realizing they wish they had actually gone onto this bandwagon. So you're actually going to see assisted e-commerce coming in a very, very big way, which means the small and medium enterprises will also get on to the so-called online, offline, and a combined model. As far as the larger players are concerned, yes, everybody will have an ambition, but the kind of investment required to do e-commerce is not very small. I mean, you've seen what's happening to the larger players, they're burning a lot of money. So maybe the marketplaces will take bigger prominence. You'll also find a lot of e-commerce companies who only provide the platform. Okay, they will jump on. So yesterday I was talking to somebody, and two of the e-commerce company, one has seen an almost 4 times rush of people wanting to come on platform. Amazon is now offering its services to all retailers and all brands to say, please come on, we'll boot you up in the next 48 hours and you can actually become e-commerce ready. Yeah, so that is going to happen. But honestly, if you look at it in this circumstances, this is not a very inclusive way of doing things, because your offline is still a very large player. Offline is 98% business. Offline has 46 million people working, and therefore it is important for us to look at the total inclusiveness of the business. But yes, online e-commerce, shopping from home is going to definitely increase. Also because of what Ajay said and Atul said, I mean, for us to get mall traffic and get the full experience, the food court and the theaters have to be full on.
That's
okay.
Right.
As of today, the layouts of the theaters and the food courts have not been designed to do social distancing. The moment you do social distancing, you start working on a 50 to 30% productivity. Okay, so I think this is the time, and I was talking to somebody, I said, please put your architects and interiors to start redesigning your food court when it opens. You know, the same one table shared by 4 is no more going to happen. So there are those kind of new things that are going to come in. But yes, I think there will be behavioral changes and serious behavioral changes.
So, Atul, 2 questions to you. One, just coming out of this only e-commerce, you know, does it mean that the malls are going to morph into a different category of products that we're going to sell? And second, a little bit more tactical, Atul, that, you know, over the next few weeks, you know, once the curve flattens and the lockdown starts to get lifted and malls are allowed to open, what's the thought on how you're going to be able to open these malls? I know in the opening remarks, you sort of commented briefly. I just want to understand, you know, I'm sure a lot of the developers on this would want to really understand, you know, what's the thought process going? How do you convince the government to say, is, you know, we're going to keep it with social distancing, safety? I don't know whether there's technology that you can bring on board to create that. So 2 things, you know, one is on the e-commerce. I know we've been very successful, but, you know, if this e-commerce continues to go up, you know, does it mean that we'll have to morph into something else? And the second is that, you know, say on the 15th of May, Atul, the government says, well, you know, guys, let's open the malls now. What happens? Atul, you're on mute.
I had sort of suggested some points that, and this is more a repeat of what I said ahead, but I had suggested some points that malls should adopt when they open. And as I said, reduced working hours, off-peak travel, 12:30 to 8:30, mall temperature check, sanitizing, all of the other points, mandatory mask, crowd control, no events, similar to hotels. These are just, I think we can, there's a list, and I hope that the government takes a practical call and puts this out. The thing that the governments need to understand is that, as Nagesh said, there are 46 million people employed. Organized retail basically functions through shopping malls. So just opening mom and pop shop is not the solution. this industry impacts the textile industry. It impacts the footwear industry. It impacts the movie making industry, and it impacts the F&B industry. So this is actually because in India there was no organized, so to speak, Oxford Street. All of the shopping was actually happening through the mall environment. So if I believe that the government needs to understand, and this is important, that every one of us who own a mall lobby with the respective state governments, because this is going to be a state decision, that by controlling, it's very difficult for them to control the banya, the bazaar, the the small shop, or even the high street shop. But if they put these controls on a shopping mall, they straight away control 1 million square feet, and they can make the owner accountable. And the mall has its own parking. It can work off-peak timing, so it doesn't conflict with the local transport like the trains in Bombay. And they can, adhere to rules that the government installs. So including that sanitization chamber that you walk through, the mask and everything can be actually achieved. The 50% capacity in a restaurant, the 50% of the rules that Ajay very correctly spoke about in a cinema, can all be achieved by simple one direction for 1 million square feet. So I think if that's the guidance there. As far as e-commerce, it's a very challenging time for us, because previously the response to e-commerce was by having events, gatherings, musical concerts, all of those other things that we did when e-commerce first started in 2010. We had our think tank that really put in the heart and soul into making the mall a social place. And now you're telling us to make the mall not a social place. So it's purely a functional shopping space. So this is a new challenge. We need to, we will lose a customer, but I remain in the camp that believes that the vaccine will take 24 months if we are lucky. In all probability, you don't have a vaccine for Ebola or SARS even today. So to be 100% sure you're going to have a vaccine in 18 to 24 months is hypothetical. I believe the world is seeking a simple protocol for looking after the extremely sick. And this will probably come in the form of an antiviral or an antibody treatment. And we are very close to that. So whether that is remdesivir or whether that's hydroxychloroquine, we are really seeking that one protocol for the extremely critical. And the minute that one protocol is in place that gives the extremely critical a chance, I think the governments will start normalizing reasonably soon.
I agree with that, Atul. But until we have that, I think we'll have to go through this entire pandemic and the chaos that it is creating, and each one of us will have to navigate our respective responsibilities and businesses. Ajay, 3 questions to you. One is, do you think that high streets may gain more favor because people may say, instead of going to a mall, I may just go into the shop that I want to on the high street? Atul said is we don't have Oxford streets, and that's true. That's where malls gained. But maybe they just feel a little bit more safe that I'm going to a shoe shop, or I'll go to a clothing shop, fashion shop on the high street. Maybe you answer that, and then the other 2 are a little longish.
Actually, I'm not really much of an expert on that, Anuj, because I've only got very few cinemas which are standalone. And we have found that even those cinemas are doing well. The old Priya, Anupam, but mostly we are in malls only, because I think the verdict is pretty much out there before Corona, where the consumers wanted to go to a organized retail space. And therefore, but you never know how consumers will behave. Maybe quickly, if they want just a grocery or something, and they don't want to go through the whole journey of going through a mall, maybe they'll behave like that. But India being, especially Delhi, the heat is a lot. So people still do prefer. I think malls will be preferred unless it's for essentials and groceries or something like that. Yeah.
Got it. Second is, Ajay, is that, in some of our tier 2, tier 3 cities, they've largely been green zones. Do you think they will gain more favor and you may have better response from your patrons to come into those in comparison to tier 1 cities?
I think, I think people will behave the same everywhere, according to me. There again, the opportunities are there, but there are other factors of discretionary income being much lesser. So I think it will all balance itself out. But we looked at this, that should, in fact, just now we're not thinking of any capex strategy in any case, but I don't think we are looking at modifying the rollout plan based on this, because this is an aberration. I don't think quickly we should be we're looking at our new SOPs, but overall, rollout of our cinemas is going to exactly remain the way it is when good times come back. But there is no, whatever segregation we've done, there are other factors in play as well, other than just the fact that it's a green zone.
Got it. One other question is, Atul also mentioned about this social distancing, and Nagesh said that as well for restaurants and for theaters. Ajay, how does that make the business case profitable? If there is going to be social distancing and maybe it's alternate seat, maybe there are 2 seats that you have to leave in between. I'm not an expert in understanding on the F&B and restaurant and theaters. Does that help in generating the profits?
Well, ironically, perhaps one is better off when in a lockdown situation in our case than when we open up with these social distancing norms, because then the expenditures will increase. When all of a sudden we open and our revenues are going to be not even 10-20% of our normal days. We were getting about 1 million people a month pre-corona on an average. And I think it's not going to be more than 20-30 lakhs. The only regional directors of South, they are the ones who are a little more optimistic because a lot of bunched up movies are there. So I think if our capacity gets reduced to 50% or whatever guidelines that are put forward, obviously is going to be a struggle. But we don't have a choice because we want people to come back. If brand new movies are there, we'll need to reimagine the cinema, which is a word which is being used with all retailers just now. Box office definitely is something which won't be needed. Either I'll give it back to us everywhere because that real estate we don't need, because people are in any case using the QR codes a lot now all over the world. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, China, they were always using it. I think that's one thing. In the concession stands, we'll have to have a lot of pre-packed foods. We'll have to do a lot of vending machines. We're already talking to people like Pepsi, Gold Medal, all that. We'll have to reduce cooking and preparing because that will also create a problem. Of course, masks, gloves, creating marks where people are 6 feet, all that is going to be done anyway. But I think cinema will have to be reimagined for some time till we are able to get back into full occupancy. As Atul said, it's anybody's guess when people's fear factor will get allayed, whether it's a medicine, whether it's a vaccine. Only when things come back to normalcy, the occupancies and the capacities will be fully utilized. Till such time, we'll have to be skeptical and see how it plays out.
I have hundreds of questions coming up. I didn't realize that we're already nearing 12.
I hope they're all for Atul and Nagesh.
They're actually for all three of you. Quickly, I'll ask a few of them, Ajay. Otherwise, Dharmesh is going to debar me from doing any further moderating. Two quick questions. One is they're saying is when do you think the new movies are going to come in? So considering that if the lockdown for the malls was going to open on 15th of May. And the second is, the impact of web series on the multiplexes.
Okay, one thing, Anuj, it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy, is that the day cinemas open up, nobody will be watching Netflix for sure. That
is true. Absolutely.
People would have exhausted themselves of watching on OTT platforms. I don't care what content is coming. People want to get it. So I think long form storytelling is what happens on web series. They're very good at that. Okay, all your TV series like Game of Thrones, all that. Short form storytelling is still meant for the big screen. Universal is the only studio globally, which tried to release a very big movie on the small screen. It did not do well at all. At all. I mean, in fact, a small territory like Taiwan did more business than what they did in the PVOD platform, which they released. Again, Disney tried something, but then they said that the content was very bad anyway. So therefore, they released it on OTT platform. I think even in India, the production costs are so high, and 60% of the revenues are still generated from theatrical. Just to give you a little flavor, 15,000 crores is a rough net box office, gross box office collection in India. 11,000 still comes from theatrical. So it's a very big piece to leave on the table. So most of the producers, whether they're making a small Ayushmann Khurrana movie, Rajkumar Rao movie, Kangana Ranaut movie, or a big blockbuster of Akshay, Salman, Amir, or Hrithik and all these guys, they just cannot ignore theatrical. So I think it's a matter of time when they get to know that the social distancing norms are not going to hit their business too much. These movies are going to come very soon. I'm looking at first week of June onwards. We're already in advanced talks. The way we are talking to developers, the same way we're talking to the film industry. A lot of movies have got bunched up also, Anuj, because productions are over. Movie like 𝗙𝗶𝗹𝗎𝐺, 𝗙𝗊, 83, a lot of Hollywood films like Bond, Wonder Woman, Maverick, which is Top Gun, and a lot of movies down south. They're all bunched up together, dying to get released. Even these guys can't afford their meter ticking.
That's right.
They've already made the content. So therefore, I think new movies are going to come by first week of June or mid-June maximum.
Beautiful. Atul, 2 questions to you. Your advice to an upcoming mall developer, and where do you see the rentals when it was like normal rental compared to where they will be now over the next 1 to 2 years? So advice to a upcoming mall owner who's going to be opening the mall now. And second is, where do you see rentals in the next 1 to 2 years?
So we were opening our mall in Lucknow called Phoenix Palacio literally on the 12th of March.
Right.
And on the 11th of March, I was still hell-bent on opening it, irrespective of everything. It was, the whole team was there, all the retailers that supported us, we were ready to open. We got correctly nudged not to do that. And so we put it off, especially because right on the same day, we started seeing notifications for Bangalore and Bombay and all to shut down, and these things happened very, very fast. Till the 10th of March, pretty much things were quite normal in India. So my advice to mall owners who are opening malls, etc., is just be patient and wait it out. For those who are building malls, my advice would be, as always, don't build without financial closure. So if you have financial closure, go ahead. And if your bank is continuing to support you, go ahead. If you don't have financial closure, it's probably a wise thing to wait. The other important advice would be that once you start building, make sure you complete very fast. So we have cut down the time of building a shopping mall from what used to be 5-6 years to now, I'm going to say 2-3 years. At least as we saw with our Lucknow asset, we opened it in 2 years, 2.5 years. So cut down your time frame, because that's this thing. And otherwise, I think so these are kind of the macro headlines for the mall side.
The second one is, Atul, that the question is, with all that you have said is in terms of the sanitization and the precautions, do you think that the CAM charges will significantly increase?
CAM charges will certainly not increase. It's all trivial extra expenses. It's another layer. As we have the security after 2008, we'll have the standardized sanitization, etc. I don't believe it's going to make any increase in CAM. I'm almost 100% certain about that. So that's not going to be a major this thing. I think you had also wanted to understand where these rents will be.
Yeah. In the next 1 to 2 years.
In the next 1 to 2 years. Again, I think that answer is derived from that word reasonableness. We should wait to see how the performance of the stores is. If the store performs at 80%, 90%, 20%, it's no point in forecasting today. The minute we see that reasonableness of the actual performance, you'll automatically arrive upon a reasonable new rent, if you call it that.
Got it. Nagesh, two quick questions that have come up. One is, do you feel that the existing stores, existing retailers will focus on making their existing stores more profitable and not look at expansion? And second is, when the malls open up, which stores do you think will come back to normal sooner than the others?
So, I mean, if somebody has money, then you have to make your existing store work, because existing stores already had a customer footfall and you don't have to spend marketing money to get in. If you're opening a new store in a new city, in a new location, then if you can hold it on, it is better. That's one. Second is, let's also not forget that the fresh spring summer 20 merchandise was in the stores and it's already become stale by 60 days, close to 45 to 60 days. So I would always say that do that. Second is, you may also have a depressed tough situation in terms of numbers. So I would not suggest to spread. Let 3 or 6 months go ahead before you open a new store. But there will be some situations where you're already committed to new stores, the mall is opening, you can't be the only one closed out, you may have already put stocks in this. I think that you have to go down and, like Atul said, using the theory of reasonableness, I think you have to actually go and open it. That I think is important. What
and which stores will do better than the others when the mall opens up? Which category of stores?
This question will be from 2 points. First will be depending on what brand and which brand it is, because this is the time when the relationship makes a lot of difference. So Anuj, if after all this, if you're called for dinner to 2 friends' house, you will go to that friend's house whom you have known to be really keeping things in good shape and sanitized. Okay, you're not going to venture into a new friend's house without knowing how the house is. Yeah. So I think people who have spent energy on keeping the brand right and the brand relationships are the ones going, irrespective of what it is, because the demand is going to be there all across. May not be a surged demand that will happen. If you're talking of the category, to me, the category that will go first will be beauty. Because I think locked in situation of 45 to 60 days, from men to do the beard trimming to doing some darkening of hairs, and women will require all kind of treatments. And it's also good for you. You feel good about going out and changing yourself and looking better. That's the first category which will happen. Second will be a lot of basic goods. Okay, and if there are family functions and weddings and things like that, the numbers will be smaller, but that's the time when people would like to dress up. See, because you have to also feel good about yourself, because before you say that I'll make the world better. So I think these are the 3 categories which will work.
Wonderful. Quick one, Atul, I know I'll try and wrap it up in the next 7, 8 minutes. The question is that, do you think that the product mix in a mall will change after this pandemic?
Yes, I think we are going to find some new categories. I think we were earlier moving a lot more towards creating the open plan in our malls, and and as we all know, we were seeing a lot of social interactive office spaces and community living. So community spaces was the theme. I think the world is going to move a little away from that. So while we were kind of adding as an anchor to our malls, we were adding community living, community offices. I think that category we'll rethink. In the broader construct, in the pre-e-commerce and the post-e-commerce, the pre-COVID and post-COVID, I don't think the macro mall mix is going to change too much.
I agree with that, Atul. I think there will be, on the community spaces, there will be some change, but I don't think so the macro product mix will change. Ajay, 2 quick things, and this is perhaps a specific, I don't know who's, whether it's a retailer or mall developer who's asking, how are you going to pay the rents after the lockdown, over the next 3, 6, 9, and 12 months?
So the identity of who's asking the question can't be disclosed?
So I think they're wanting that. And the second one is they're saying the F&B is a significant portion do you think that that is going to get impacted with the patron not wanting to really buy the F&B because they may not know really the surety of the hygiene behind that, behind the food that they're taking?
I think first question quickly I'll answer, and I think Atul has answered that for everybody. We are going to be reasonable with everybody, and that's the only way we can. Because we are joined at the hip. We are not, we're facing one issue together, and we have to be together. There's no need to be confrontational or antagonistic at all in this one. So that's what our approach will be. Second is that F&B is a binary revenue stream that we've got. People buy tickets and then they buy F&B, and advertising happens on the screen. So we can't disassociate ourselves with selling F&B. As I said, we are already talking to Pepsi, and we've already seen it all over the world. Vending machine is a big one for at least things which are very easy to just grab and go. We will not be cooking too much stuff. We will be having a lot of pre-packed stuff. 2-3 things are only which are high margin items for us. It's not hidden or secret or anything like that, which is Pepsi, popcorn. And these are the 2-3 things really. So this is what we want to upsell as much as possible. And the rest of the things which are, because Indian movies, the format is very long. So people like some substantial food as well. So we'll make sure that that substantial food is also pre-cooked, prepared earlier. And all the hygienic precautions, everything that can be taken. The industry globally has really come together, Anuj, and everybody is sharing best practices on F&B, on box office. This Global Cinema Forum is very, very active, and it's brilliant stuff out there to make sure that the consumers will be happy and will be implementing it.
Yeah, beautiful. Go ahead, Nagesh.
Yeah, I think even in this discussion, 3-4 things have come up, Anuj. I just want to put it on the table. Irrespective of the size of the business, I think each one have to relook at the business model. Okay, we have to literally look at it, just to see what's happened. Ajay said that he might have to look at the ticket price. Okay, the occupancy could be 50% because of social distancing. Atul said that he's starting the mall to operate at for 8 hours, one shift. Okay, and we are talking of likely customer entry to be in the region of 50 to 60 or 70%. If any one of us sitting, okay, and look at these 4 and the government directive of saying don't lay off people, I mean, how can any of the existing models work? You have to rethink your business model, and I think we have to be very real. And the business models have to rework. Version 1 now, version 2 maybe 6 months down the line, version 3 maybe 12 months, and then we are all good to running.
And I just have one small point, Anuj. I also think that we need to be one voice when we talk to the customer as well. I think retailers going separately, real estate going separately. I think it's important that the government should know that we are very interdependent. It's a symbiotic relationship. And world over, I know the government has got lots of issues. I've had lots of calls with everyone. Yet we have to keep making the noise, because all those things that were spoken about earlier, GST relief, whether it's liquidity, massive liquidity, all these things are important for everybody. If suddenly the government opens their taps and does something for all of us together, and even CREDAI, I don't know what the qualification is, whether it's a goatee or how to get into that. I'm happy to do that as well.
One point on this GST, which is very important. I think if you build a commercial office building and you sell the units, you get input credit.
That's right.
But whereas when you lease the units, or if you lease a shopping mall, you don't get input credit. I think this is an aberration which the government could very well correct for all of us, which will be a very material and relevant thing. And I think it's something that CREDAI-MCHI can achieve in this period of time.
Anuj, can I get
Anuj, just 1 minute, just to interject on, what my friend Ajay and Atul were saying. I think one aspect I think all of us need to work together is the interface with the government. So I don't think there is a retailer portion or a mall owner portion there. I think all of us have to together present one face to the government. And as Atul rightly said, why shouldn't there be input credit? We've been fighting very heavily for input credit. So today what is happening is that your cost rate goes up by 18% when you don't have input credit. So on one aspect you are being charged in GST, and then you don't have input credit. So that's one thing, Atul, really we need to fight together on all rental assets, not just malls. But on
Correct.
all rental
Malls
assets,
and
that's one
offices.
thing worth fighting.
Malls and offices.
Malls, offices. So I'm saying all rental assets, Atul. I think wherever there is rental income, it is critical to fight that.
Yeah.
Second, I think with all state governments, there has to be a sort of relief stroke holiday on property taxes. If
Sorry, Dharmesh, we seem to have lost your voice. Dharmesh, I think the connectivity is not. I think what Dharmesh is trying to say is on the advocacy part.
If there is no capital value generation or there is no value generation right now, you can be paying the same property. So the second thing, Anuj, what I was mentioning is, yeah, you hear me? No? Okay. Anuj, you can continue.
Dharmesh, maybe if you switch off your video, then we'll be able to hear you better.
Can you hear me?
Okay. So guys, I'll just summarize it. I don't want to. End by you and
Anuj,
take it forward.
Anuj, then thereafter I wanted just a couple of minutes of what I have listed out 7 things that CREDAI-MCHI could do. So whenever you feel like give me an opportunity, I want to inform all the 3 panelists because great ideas have come to me. So whenever you feel like, you can give a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're saying is, Nanbhai, that what MCHI CREDAI can do as advocacy with the state and the central government for the mall and retailers. Beautiful.
And the corporation.
Absolutely. I think that is very important. And it's a very important point, Nanbhai. You know, one of the intent of getting this panel is that only, because Nagesh at the start also said is that the pain is larger than just the 2 stakeholders to bear. And you know, we will need that support. So I'll hand it over to you. I just last question from the panelist. I mean, I've got 117 questions more. Pritam, maybe you know, you'll need to circulate these questions, or we needed to have a longer session than that. And it's still continuing on and on and on. You know, it's a fantastic. Maybe it was a category. It was a discussion that was missing till now. And I think
also, Anuj, we have 7,000 people who can't ask questions there on YouTube.
Wow. So I think, you know, it may be a session that may require, you know, another opportunity to put it up. Nagesh, going forward, say 6 months later, you know, we have COVID-19 in control, malls have opened, and, you know, we're like living life as both Atul and Ajay said, is, you know, we are a resilient, you know, community. As Indians, we are naturally very positive to be able to get in. What's the suggestion that you're going to give to the mall owners here? You know, 6 months post COVID-19. Hi, Nagesh, you're on mute.
Yeah, so life has to go back, Anuj, in the way it was, with much more diligence and much more exuberance, because at the end of the day, we have together won a battle. Okay, so I think that's the positive thing that we have to do. Like I said, the business models have to be relooked even then, because even 3 to 6 months of dent, okay, will have a dent in the balance sheet, and the people have to look at it. Okay, it also will depend on how the government has supports. If the government gives 10% of GDP as the working capital flow for everybody put together, I think we'll recover much faster. I don't know that. Yeah, definitely the whole collaboration of retailer, mall owner, and the community has to change. See, till now what was happening was that depending on the retailer or the mall owner, the community was engaged. I think the community has to be brought in much more inclusive. There are very few destination malls. Most of them are community malls. So community has to be fully involved. And that's one big thing that can happen. So जैसे हमारे घर के लोग होते हैं, वैसे if we can say कि ये हमारी घर की दुकान है, and everybody around 2 kilometers only comes to that mall. Okay, I think that will become a very, very positive way of looking at it. And we are hoping that retailers and mall owners and the theaters, all of us will do this together. And the other thing is, maybe the malls have to become very, very e-commerce friendly. Okay, just imagine if all the food court tables has a desktop. You can even sit and eat and shop, and the shop stop within the same mall will deliver it to you at your table. Things will become very good. I mean, you can actually do online, offline together, and this also support the social distancing norms that we have. So we'll have to reimagine the models across. Maybe you'll have to have a much larger delivery and receiving section in the mall. Today we have it within the shops.
I agree, absolutely. Atul, just quickly, what are the learnings that will come out of this? I mean, as they say, is that let no crisis go waste. What do you say are the one or two learnings that we'll pick up from this crisis?
I feel that, I hope I'm right on this, but I feel that we will learn 3 to 6 months from today that we need to be very, very wary about spreading fear on social media. I feel that is the biggest learning that the world will take away. If I was to give you my opinion, I feel that we are getting misled by fatality rates that the media is throwing around, because actually it's a numerator divided by a denominator, but they are working this out without a proper denominator. So the fatality rate of COVID, I believe, will be 50 times lower than it's being currently projected. So this is I believe the learning for the world from COVID will be, do not fear monger. But I don't think your question to me was supposed to be about COVID. That was my sermonizing.
No, and that is true. So one of those learnings are, remain positive. Do not, spread negativity or fear around, and much of it may have been done by media.
The other, of course, key learning will be that we have to all control our leverage and always think about these unexpected events, which we don't factor for in our day-to-day life and our business life. I think we, as a nation, we are always all in, and we should be a little more conservative. We should, the retailer and the mall owner should have more equity and less debt. And I think the other learning is that our interest rates need to, I think we have to, I think this is a big one. I think the government needs to the RBI and the government needs to really, the paradigm shift has to be the interest rates under which we operate. I think post-COVID, we have to have a complete new paradigm of interest. We have to move towards a Western interest concept. The interest rates are at least 2.5%, 3%, maybe 4% lower than we've been operating under. I think without that, we are going to grapple in India to solve this.
Very well said. Ajay, finally to you, what are the, say, two positives that we're going to see on the other side of the tunnel? So what are the two positives that are going to come out of this?
See, first of all, as I said at the beginning, that nobody can, plan for something like this. You can plan for your volatility in your business. That 4 weeks, the movies will not come good or something will happen, I think, but nobody can plan. Having said that, hindsight is 2020. One of the things is, of course, as Atul said, that you should you should have a very heavily leveraged balance sheet. You should try to make sure that you remain healthy. It's like a human being has to remain healthy. I think your business should also try and remain healthy. So you remain resilient, you yourself remain resilient. And I think writing was on the wall on technology front. I think even before this, if you look at the youngsters, that's the biggest consumer base, at least movies are 1, 2, 3, 4. They were still not very bothered about, they stuck to their phones. They didn't want to have interaction even then. And even now they're not. So I think we should not get scared of technology. We should work with technology, as Nagesh also said. And I think that's something that we've not been doing. And we should remain very, very nimble. I think even the number of people that one eats and everything, you carry this, flab, so to speak. And you need to be lean as well. And you need to be flexible. And there's so many lessons that will come out of this. And post-COVID will be a different world altogether.
I mean, I've had a fascinating discussion. Preetam, I'm going to hand it over to you, and then you can perhaps give it to Benita or to Nayan Bhai. But I'll just say, there are 4 things that I picked up today. One is Atul, reasonableness. I mean, that's a super word in these circumstances. I spoke with a very large retailer yesterday, and in the court of law, that retailer, not on the rental part, won decision, and it was by the courts, Atul. It was based on this word reasonableness in there. So everybody is going to be looking at that. Second is collaboration. Both Ajay, you and Nagesh mentioned that is right from the community, which Nagesh, you articulated well, to the occupier, who's the retailers, to the landlord, the mall owner, and to the government. I think all will have to really collaborate. And third one is, the business models will change. And, all of us will really need to be flexible, leverage, certainly will need to be lower. And as Ajay finally said, is that, you don't really need to have that fat. You have to be as fit as Ajay. I think that is the mantra for your businesses, as flexible as Ajay, to make sure that if you have to have similar circumstances going forward, then your businesses are really fighting fit. So with that, I hand it over, Preetham, to you.
Yeah. Before I hand over to Nayan for his points, I hope that the revenge shopping concept that we heard from the McKinsey webinar also happens in India, and we are back with a bang very soon. Nayan, over to you before we have a vote of thanks.
Yeah. So thank you, Ajay ji, Nagesh, and Atul, and Anuj. I was just thinking as what CREDAI-MCHI could do to ensure that the vibrancy of retail continues, because you are a very, very important part of the real estate industry. So to begin with, first, Preetham, can we make them our members of CREDAI-MCHI? Point number one.
Of course.
And I have 6 things in which I feel CREDAI-MCHI could do something for the whole retail industry. Number one, Atul, can I get a proper representation from you regarding the input tax credit on the GST with data as to how, what's your capital cost, what's the leasing, and ultimately, when a mall happens, the kind of purchasing that happens, and whatever the government may apparently feel that they are losing in the ITC, they get 100 times more than what, as and when the mall happens. So a proper data, point number one. We will take this up with CREDAI National, we'll take this up with NAREDCO, and we'll see to it that this happens. Point number one. Point number two. Regarding the property taxes, I think what we can represent to the corporation is that if today, say the Phoenix Mall at Lower Parel is paying 100 rupees as a property tax, they must collect only 33 rupees as of now, because to begin with, the falls are going to be reduced by 50%. Second, even after the reduced fall, you will have to increase the entrances, the movement passages, your additional staircases, and stuff like that. So the net usable, lettable area is going to reduce. So how can we represent with a drawing that the property taxes need to be 1/3 of what they are today? So that's point number two. Point number three, for all the future malls that are happening in MMR or in Maharashtra, the unified DCPR in fact is about to be done, and even there is likely to be a change in the Mumbai DCPR, where we can make a 1 million square feet design or a 500,000 square feet design, Atul, and we can earmark areas which are basically non-lettable, which are only from the angle of passages, lobbies, staircases, and hence request the government to, in a way, increase the FSI, so that what you pay for the fungible FSI or the premium FSI, so your capital cost will dramatically come down. And once your capital cost automatically come down, your LUC, your property taxes, everything cascades, and they also change. So that's point number three. Point number four, I am sure if I was Mr. Atul Ruia or Nagesh or Ajay Bijli, I would think that I have to retrofit all the things that I have right now. And in this period of retrofitting, my mall or my space will be closed. So for that period of 4 months, 6 months, how can I represent to the corporation or to the state government to say that you should not levy me the property taxes because it is not put to a commercial use? See, the mall may have a working license, but a large part of the mall is shut. So that's point number four. Point number five is that, and this is just coming as a consumer to all of you, that can we ask together the state government to give an entertainment tax holiday, or maybe have entertainment tax 50% off for the next 6 months, So if I'm coming to see No Time to Die, a James Bond movie, instead of paying 1,000 rupees, I'm paying 500 rupees. So, I feel more and more people would love to come. And the last thing that I have to suggest is, and this is from my own point of view, that is it possible for you guys to make a film, short films of different types, where you show to us that how I and my wife and my children, uh, despite having social distances, can come and enjoy in your malls, So which are the ways in which, because abhi to kaisa lagta hai ki I won't be able to hold the hand of my wife and walk with her, kind of that way. Or so how some kind of short films, that make us feel, okay, how do I adjust to the new normal? So these are my points to all of you.
Nayan bhai, your points are absolutely fantastic and bang on the mark. I'll certainly send you those couple of representations you spoke about. And of course, I want to just say one more thing, that this COVID-19 is a terrible, terrifying disease. So please, I don't mean to trivialize what this disease is at all with my positive comments. It is a totally terrifying disease, and we have to all stay well, stay safe, stay strong above all else. So I just wanted to get that sentiment across as well.
I just said one point only is with Nagesh. Nagesh, after that whole pizza incident yesterday, I thought it's not a bad idea if some employee protocols your institution can also make, which all of us retailers and mall operators can follow. We're making some anyway. Gautam is involved in that. But I think the employee protocols will also then help in giving confidence to the consumers that whoever is there in the cinemas, in the mall, in the restaurants, in the retail outlets, they've all been checked and they're all sort of following a certain process. Just another tick in the box to bring that consumer confidence back.
Absolutely. In fact, RAI has just released a full safety protocol for the total industry. And it's a fairly detailed document created by all the HR leaders of the retail organization. And I'm going to pick from there, Ajay, and very well said. In TRAIN, we will actually add that on. And we will actually pass it on to all the members as well as everybody who's involved with the employees. But I liked Nayan Bhai saying that how can he hold his hands with his wife and walk around after 6 weeks of lockdown. I think this is the most positive thing that I have heard. Thank you so much.
Nayan bhai, I also want to send you one more representation, which is what should be, when malls reopen, what should be the guidelines surrounding their rules governing the reopening of malls.
Sure.
And if that is also submitted via CREDAI-MCHI, it will be excellent.
Sure, Atul. Bilkul send us. We will be more than happy doing that.
Yes, lovely.
Pritam, sabka membership kara le tu abhi.
We're also making SOPs for under construction projects, so that there are a lot of guidelines that the government has come up with for social distancing norms for laborers also. So we'll also share that with you as to what is the likely SOPs for starting construction on sites once we are allowed to do so.
Okay.
Now I call upon Binita Dalal from 𝗙𝗏𝗎 Group. She's a lady. She's a youth member. So the best suited to give a vote of thanks for the retail session.
Thank you so much, Pritam. And thank you all the panelists, right from Mr. Ruia, Mr. Ajay, Mr. Nagesh. I think best parts about this is that we as a fraternity are coming together and we are working on this entire pandemic jointly. It is very heartfelt to see the kind of readiness that all of you all have, both in terms of going an extra mile to think of how you guys will restart your entire businesses, as well as in terms of the safety that is needed for everyone that comes into malls. I think, Anuj, you've been fabulous. I think every seminar that we see where you are there and you're moderating it, it's been a learning experience in terms of the entire way that you conduct it. And thank you for the most amazing questions and conducting it in the best way possible. I won't repeat what you already said, which is that reasonableness, practicality is what everyone is looking at in terms of coming together and fighting this pandemic. So thank you so much. And one last thank you to all our sponsors. It's good to see that in times like this, there are people coming forward to fight this pandemic with us and have gracefully come forward and sponsored these webinars. 𝗙𝗏𝗧𝗏, and Godavari Paints, thank you so much. It's absolutely amazing to have you guys be there with us. Everything that is coming in from this seminar is going to be donated towards the COVID fight that MCHI has taken up. Thank you, everyone, including all the participants who have joined us. We have about 1,900 plus people on the Zoom session, as well as 7,000 plus on Facebook. Thank you for logging in every day. It means a lot to have you guys with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tomorrow we have
How popular you guys are.
Mr.
to all of
Vallabh Bansali, at 11. We will put out the details for everyone. Tomorrow at 11 is Mr. Vallabh Bansali. Please log in again as always. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Namaskar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks.
thank you guys. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.